Good evening, everyone. Lavette Min here,
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Shara Prophet.
and welcome back to Deceptive Figures Exposed, the podcast where we break down the illusions created by those who manipulate, deceive, and betray. Now, tonight's episode is a really special episode because this particular person we'll be speaking on tonight, we know this person personally, more
hmm
so you, Shara, than me, because I know that you've had, in person encounters with her and you've also worked with her too. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to your insight on, some of the things we'll be speaking on tonight. So, tonight we'll be discussing one of the most disturbing cases of maternal deception. And
hmm
this is the case of Dejaune Anderson, the mother that was accused of unaliving her 5-year-old son, Cairo Jordan, and leaving his body in a suitcase in a wooded area of Indiana. This is a case about crime, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
also manipulation, delusion, and how social media, paranoia, and spiritual deception and spiritual psychosis, because we're starting to see a lot of that nowadays, and how
Yeah.
it can be weaponized to justify the unthinkable. So, the question that I have, I actually have two questions. Was
hmm
Anderson truly mentally unstable, or was this all a well crafted act of deception?
Hmm.
Your thoughts, Cheryl?
I would say, yeah, she did have some mental instabilities. And I couldn't really work with her past one session where we did consultation. And then I provided her with some anger management tools and breathing techniques because I am not a licensed mental health practitioner. So I couldn't work with her
Mm-hmm.
after I discovered that there were some deep not only emotional wounds, but there was some mental instability there. And I told her this, and then I recommended her to work with other people. I actually referred her to a few people. But I mean, obviously she never, you know, went through with it. So I would have to
Yeah.
say, yeah, absolutely. There was some mental instability for sure.
Yeah. So let's go back to April 16th of 2022. And it was baffling to me, when I did my research, just gathering my notes for tonight. I was like, there go that month and year again, April 2022, right?
hmm
Yeah. So on that date, that's when the suitcase was found with the Las Vegas themed design, and it was found abandoned in Washington County, Indiana. And unfortunately, inside was the lifeless body of a young boy. So for months, authorities had no leads, right? There were no missing child reports, no witnesses, nothing. But it wasn't until October of 2022 that the police identified, the victim as 5-year-old Cairo Jordan. And of course, the primary suspect was his own mother,
hmm
Dejuane Anderson. But then things began to take a disturbing turn as a lot of the Facebook posts were uncovered during the investigation. They found that something far more sinister was at play. And I'm glad that we're speaking on this particular topic and on this particular person, because as I was watching several of the different news clippings and broadcasts, there was a
hmm
question that was asked to the great grandmother of Cairo. And the news reporter asked, if she knew that, Dejaune Anderson if she was involved in any type of spiritual practices or anything like that. And the great great grandmother was like, I'm old. I don't know what these young people are doing nowadays, but something definitely wasn't right. And as I'm watching the different news clippings and listening to a lot of the other YouTubers that, they had did their own story on this particular case, that was the missing piece, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were able to, tell their stories based on what was publicly already put out there, but we know behind the scenes what community that she was a part of. And
Right.
I'll say allegedly, but how being a part of that community and taking part in a lot of the different spiritual practices played a hand into this whole sad and unfortunate situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. No, I recently did a live on Facebook talking about the importance of mental wellness before you delve into magic and dealing with, anything that has to do with working with other entities and, deep spiritual practices. And, I remember when I noticed that Dejaune was kind of spiraling. Um, she was posting on Facebook and she started talking about how she was, a healer and she had healed herself of all of these things and excuse me, and how she heals other people. And how she had nothing more to heal because she had healed like all of her wounds and she had, done all of this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting because, we just had a session less than a year ago and you were not doing, you had a lot of work to work through and we all do. And I'm like, if I ain't completely healed from all my stuff, honey, I know you ain't. So,
Right.
and then I remember she had, and I think I commented on one of her posts, and then she commented back that I was, that I had a lot of entities around me and I needed to be cleansed. And so I told her, I said, you know what? If I do have a lot of entities around me, they'll be working for me very soon because
Hmm.
that's how I work with, entities and other, spirits and things like that. I'm not fearful of them. I don't need to banish them. They just join my team. Um, so after that, I think she had started posting some more stuff and it was just way like off the rails. And so I decided to just unfollow her because I was just like, yo, I can't like look at this stuff anymore. This girl is just clearly out of it. And I think I might have messaged her one time and I said, listen, I think that you probably need to really um, look into getting some professional mental help. We've worked together before, but it seems like things are kind of going a little left.
Hmm.
And she never responded back to me. So uh when I heard about what happened, it broke my heart, first of all, because I didn't know the baby at all, but I remember during our time session, that she was talking about trying to get her child back and all of these things and the stuff that she was working on and trying to do to improve herself to make sure that her baby had a better life. And I think the father at that time had the child. um so it just broke my heart to hear that this had happened to this innocent child, especially on the basis of her believing that this was what was it, like 100-year-old demon inside of him or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and so looking back on how she was spiraling out, um and this was like right, I mean, what was that, 2022 that happened? We had
Hmm.
just graduated from the mystical, what's the name of it, the magical mystic
Apprenticeship.
apprenticeship. Yes,
Yeah.
excuse me, I don't know how I
No.
blanked out for a moment.
Yeah.
We had just graduated in 2021, May of 2021, from the magical mystic apprenticeship together. We were in the same class. And she was there, all of that good stuff or whatever. We were supposed to like go out, me, her, and another one of the apprentices were supposed to go out. I didn't make it out,
Mhm.
and probably for good reason. Like, and for some reason, I
Mhm.
missed their call or they didn't call me or whatever. We were supposed to go to a strip club or something like that.
Mhm.
And now that I think about it, I'm like, good. That was, that's when rejection is spiritual protection,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
feeling I was kind of feeling away like, damn, why they ain't call me, but at the same time, now that I look back on everything, I see why. So, um, after hearing about what happened, it really did occur to me, like, she had no business practicing magic. She just didn't. She had no
Mhm.
business doing it, not without the care of a licensed mental health professional, um, a therapist, a psychotherapist, or whatever, she needed to heal a lot of deep emotional wounds that she had from, things that she had gone through, abuse and things like that, in her family. I think her and her mom had issues with each other. In fact, they had it was a very strained relationship.
Mhm.
Her and the father of her child had a strained relationship. And she was just, her life was just, very shaky. It was not stable at all. Her physical life was not stable. And also her mental health was unstable as well. So she had absolutely no business being in this apprenticeship,
Right.
absolutely no business practicing deep magic, and definitely not working with as many spirits entities that we were working with during that apprenticeship. And that's a whole full year of you having what they call walkthroughs and spirits riding
Mhm.
you. And if you don't really know how to properly detach from those, and I'm gonna be honest with anybody out there, like, it's not that you can't detach from them, and it's not that you can't cleanse and purge yourself of any type of entity that you have allowed to merge with you or take possession of you. You can. It's just a lot. You have to do a lot of things to
Mhm.
fully disconnect from that. And to be honest with you, that was not fully explained or given to us under the tutelage of the leader of that group. Okay, that was
Right.
never, you know what I mean.
Right.
Now, those of us who didn't have um extreme backlash from that, either you are protected, your mind is, a steel trap, pretty much, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
or you on your own tapping into your own higher awareness was led to fully spiritually disconnect and cleanse yourself of whatever entities might have been merged with your energy. But Dejaune didn't have that. She didn't have that. Clearly, she didn't
Yeah.
have that. So it is dangerous to play around with that kind of stuff if you're not under the right supervision, if you don't
Mhm.
have the right teacher, um, and if you are dealing with any kind of mental unwellness or instability, it is just not a good recipe for that. So that's my long, uh, my long way of
No.
saying,
Mhm.
yeah, she definitely, she should not have been dealing with that. The working, dealing in that particular spirituality, um, especially when you're working with demons. You're working with all kinds of different entities, gods and goddesses from different cultures and different backgrounds that do require a certain way of you tapping into their energy, by the way, not just you
Right.
setting out water and giving them, different foods and stuff like that. Some of these entities, you really have to, it takes time for you to fully connect with them. Some of them you have no business connecting with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have a particular way that you need to tap in. They have different ends, as they call them, different songs or mantras that you need to say before you can really reach them. So most of the time, you're not even certain that that's the spirit or the entity that you've tapped into. You might have tapped
Right.
into something completely different, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was a huge miscarriage of guidance when it comes to that, in my opinion. Now I'm not blaming the person who's in charge, who was leading that group. I'm not blaming her 100%. Absolutely not. However, as a person who myself, I'm also a spiritual teacher. I do have students and things like that that are learning with me. Um, there's a certain responsibility that you have. First of all, you need to filter out the people that you work with, first and foremost. You need to do consultations with them one-on-one to find out if they make a good candidate. Are they mentally well enough to do this type of work?
I agree. Yeah.
That was not
That's
done. Not when I
yeah.
was an apprentice, not at all. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially when you're practicing magic on that level, high magic, and dealing with these ancient entities and tapping into
right.
them and having these different walkthroughs. There should be a very thorough vetting process when you
Mhm.
are accepting students and mentees. I totally agree. I feel
Absolutely.
like it's egregious and it's very irresponsible not to, you know?
Mhm. 100%.
Yeah.
Um, and it was one of the reasons why I didn't work further with the Dejaune, because
Mhm.
I was like, no, I can't. I told her straight up, I cannot work any further with you. I can give you some tips and tools because she was needed some anger management stuff. Um, but as far as us working together in the future, I'm not going to be able to do that until you are under the care of a licensed therapist. And then I'm going to have to get a medical referral from them
Mhm.
in order to work with you. And I'm only going to be able to work with you behaviorally. I am not going to be able to work with you on your actual mental illness. And I'm not going to be able to work with you until I get approval from your therapist. So after
Right.
that one session, it was it. I no longer worked with her anymore. Um, so I feel like had this been done, had this leader taken the time to actually uh, filter through the people who want to work with her, like have a one-on-one consultation, ask the right questions, find out did they ever have you ever been hospitalized, are you under the
Mhm.
care of a therapist? Tell me, why are you here? What is it that you're looking for? Talk to them, get a feel of their energy to decide whether or not this person is well enough to be doing this type of work. This is very deep work. When you are working with
Yeah.
spirits and, doing magical rituals and things like that, dealing with the subconscious mind, because that's what we're doing. Whenever you do magic,
Mhm.
you are delving into the realms of the subconscious mind. You need to be in order for it to work. And if
Right.
you start tapping into these entities and these energies, that's all the subconscious right there. That's all dealing with the mind and your psyche, so, and your soul. So the fact that that was not taken into consideration plays a very big part in what happened. I'm a full, firm believer in that. And I can say that because I worked with her, and I can say that because I do consultations before I take on a person as a client
Mhm.
for that very reason.
for that very reason. So I would like to go back to the graduation that was held May of 2021, because this
Hmm.
situation with Dejaune started to unravel in April of 2022. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering if attending the graduation was like the beginning of her spiraling out, because you remember, you and I, we talked previously about how these graduations are a form of public rituals,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because when I listened to the family speak about Dejan, they mentioned that she never really exhibited any type of mental illness. She was a really good mother. She took care of her kids. She made sure that they were, that they had their mannerisms, they were clean, they were dressed really well. So they never saw this coming. Even when the reporter started to read out the caption in a few of the posts that Dejan had put up, the great grandmother, excuse me, she was very taken aback. She was shocked. She was like, I've never known that side of her. You know, granted,
Hmm.
she did say that she didn't know her well because Dejan would just come, drop him off, and pick him up. But just from the little that she did know of her, she never displayed any of those characteristics.
Right.
So that leaves me to question. I wonder if the graduation was the catalyst to her spiraling out, because in these posts she talked about, again, raising a 100-year-old demonic child. She even spoke
Hmm.
about being in a spiritual warfare and how dark forces was controlling him. She also
Hmm.
talked about, performing an exorcism and wanting to write a book about living with a possessed child. Like, you could literally see the mental decline. And
Yeah.
it also reminded me so much of, and I'll share a little, personal story here, but I know someone that was suddenly, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they were hit with a mental disorder. Okay. Now, traditionally, they were diagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay. But myself, including spiritual practitioners that were very close to me, I reached out to them and they were able to identify that this particular person was spiritually attacked, which led
Hmm.
to the mental decline. Now, some of the symptoms that this person was exhibiting, it included being attacked by demons, being
Yeah.
haunted, seeing
Yeah.
things that aren't clearly not there, hearing things that clearly aren't there. So when I hear of and read of, some of the things that Dejan was experiencing and dealing with, for me, I honestly feel like she was hit spiritually. And I do feel like it was because she was in proximity to this particular community, the magical mystic community.
Yeah. You know what? I'm a firm believer of it because I know that I was hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And several
yeah.
other people were hit also in my same class. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, now I would say this. I don't know if it was necessarily the graduation. I think that shit started way before that, to be honest.
Okay,
Because
okay,
when her and I had our meeting, our session together, that was before the graduation.
okay, okay.
Okay. And that's when I had picked up on the fact that something was a little off, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, that spiritual warfare and all of those attacks and things like that was happening before the graduation. I noticed that for me personally, after the graduation, that's when things really kicked up and stuff really
Hmm.
started being a little more intense. But before graduation, while I was in the apprenticeship, I was battling shit off. You know, I'm keep cussing, but
That's okay.
try not to cuss that much, y'all.
That's okay.
Um, I was battling a lot of stuff before the graduation, you know. So I would not doubt that at all, because so many of us dealt with that.
Right.
You dealt with that. You weren't even an apprentice, but you still dealt with that.
Definitely, for sure, because
Yeah.
remember we talked about it a few episodes ago. When you first entered the apprenticeship, you started experiencing some supernatural happenings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you just kept asking like, what the fuck is going on? And you just didn't want to believe it was um, coming from or being projected from that community, because you're like, first of all, like, I just joined, I don't have any quote unquote bad blood with anyone, so what the fuck is really going on? And then
Right.
even for me, when I first, even though I wasn't an apprentice, but just again being in proximity to the community, I joined the group, so now I'm within the sphere, I'm within the covenant,
Mm-hmm.
I'm within the circle. And I told you that I remember my first experience, which I did forget about, which was so weird. I don't know how I forgot about it, but my first supernatural
You know how
experience.
you forgot about it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. The spirit was like, remember this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole
Mm-hmm.
experience with the bat, and that was
Right.
a
Right.
weird, freaky situation. So
Mm-hmm.
again, just being in proximity to that particular, I call, it's a coven, that particular coven. um I think it really exacerbated some things that probably was already there, maybe just lying
Right.
dormant, but
Of
it
course.
probably exacerbated it. And unfortunately, it spiraled into what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
if anyone, you don't even have to be mentally unwell or unstable to experience some sort of spiritual warfare, especially if you have what I like to call cracks in your foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll use me as an example. I was dealing with codependency issues, and I had no idea that I was dealing with codependency. And I should have known because of what I do, but I just didn't. As you know, always it's not always that and then you're not always able to tap fully into your own
Your own
stuff.
stuff.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Until something happens and something is shaken up, it's time for you to actually deal with it. So because of that, the attacks that I experienced, whether it was from that one person or the multiple people, which I believe mine came from multiple people, um, including that leader.
Yeah.
Um, but that stuff would not have been able to affect me had I not had that crack in my foundation that I needed to become aware of. So absolutely, you don't have to have mental illness, mental instability to experience that. Now, if you do have mental illness and mental instability, then you're going to experience that like at a much higher level
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have a still trap, still trap mind. And a still trap mind means that you are able, even though you might be dealing with a hardship in your life, you're still able to focus, you're still able to take care of yourself. You're still able to tell, reality from fantasy. Um, you're still focused and stable. But if you don't have a still trap mind, then it's really easy for you to totally go off the rails and go and lose yourself.
Yeah.
And it's also really easy for possession to take place, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very, very important for people to understand that the first line of protection for you is to heal whatever it is that you might be going through. And if somebody suggests that you should go see someone, don't take offense to it. It's nothing wrong with going to the doctor. It's nothing wrong with going to talk to somebody. There's nothing wrong to with going to get a mental evaluation. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are afraid of being held overnight. Usually the longest you're going to be held for is 72 hours because they can't hold you against your will.
Yeah.
If there is something wrong, really, if there is something, if they see a mental imbalance or something happens, they cannot hold you against your will. You have the freedom to walk away. The
Mm-hmm.
longest you will be held for is 72 hours. So Um,
Yeah.
hold on a second. Somebody who's watching just messaged me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's so funny. They just said the stories I could tell. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I
What
really
do
wish y'all would. I wish y'all would tell some of the stories,
I
but I
was
get
just
it. I
about to say,
understand.
do they want to come up here with us? We can definitely drop the link. I keep forgetting to do
If
that.
you yeah, if you want to come up and,
If they're
and tell
comfortable
us
with it, yeah.
if you're comfortable with, you don't have to, but if you're comfortable with it, you're more than welcome to join us. So just let me know and we can drop a link. Okay. But you don't
Yeah.
have to. I mean,
Yeah.
this ain't for everybody.
Right. So the thing that still, bemuses me is how she was able to evade the law for so long, considering that she is at this point, she is obviously mentally fragmented, right? So for nearly 2 years, she was able to travel
Mhm,
across California, Nevada, Texas, and Georgia. Right. The
mhm,
authorities, they were able to track her to Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and San Francisco, but she always managed to stay ahead until she was finally captured in March of 2024.
mhm.
And they were able to capture her in Arcadia, California. But this is the thing, when they arrested her, and she talked about this in court when she had her arraignment. First of all, she didn't deny her crimes. She admitted to it, right? And then she also stated that she was being tracked by the NSA, Space Force, and other government agencies. She also claimed to be a princess. The name was really long, so I do not remember. I don't even really know what she said when she said the name,
Damn.
but a princess that was born February 2nd of 1961, and that was the entity that was speaking on behalf of Dejaune Anderson. Now, to everyone
Mhm.
else, they're looking at her like, there's nothing wrong with her. She's playing crazy so she can, avoid going to prison and instead
Mhm.
maybe be institutionalized, right, in the psych hospital or something like that. But for us, being practitioners and spiritual practitioners as well, we know what that means. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So as far as her being able to evade the authorities,
Hmm.
she was probably using some good spell work, honestly, to keep her, going for as long as she did. Because when
Right.
did they finally they caught up with her? When
In
was that?
March
Of
in Arcadia,
2023, right?
2024, last
Oh,
year.
wow. Oh, yeah. Last year. Okay, most
Yeah.
recently, yeah.
Hmm.
So, um, I think that she was probably, using some spell work and magic to help cloak herself. Um, but when you hurt a child and you go against universal law like that, you can't hide that much. You can't hide that long.
Right.
Um, so um, I thought I saw her because I saw her, I saw the clip of her in court saying all of those things that to most people are like, oh my gosh, she's just faking. I was like, she's not faking. I think I actually commented on one of the YouTube videos where it was like a clip of her in court saying that that long name and all of this stuff. And, she had to fight these demons and everything like that. I said, actually, she's not faking it. She
Hmm.
really 100% believes all of this, Um,
Hmm.
and, I think that when you are that deep into a psychosis, having a psychotic episode that's long standing with no medication, no one, she's on the run, mind you, after she's just done this horrible thing to her child, which is also putting her in a deeper state
Yeah.
of psychosis, right? Um,
Hmm.
then she has no one to pull her out. No one, she's not around family, she's not around friends, she's not around someone who can like take her to a doctor or get her some medication or anything. So she's just going like spiraling deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this place where now she totally believes everything, right?
Right.
Totally believes that she's this princess's name. Can't remember the name either. This princess's name. She totally believes that what she did was justified. She totally believes that she had to do it in order to save herself, save her child, and possibly save the world,
Mm-hmm.
because she was positioning herself as the savior type of person. Because just from the Facebook posts I was seeing, she was seeing demons everywhere and entities everywhere, and she was working to cleanse and purify and help people heal and get these demons and entities off of them. Those were the posts I was seeing
Yeah.
before I finally decided to just like stop following her. So I do believe that she really 100% believed all of this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, all right. So let's talk about her assigned archetype. Now, this isn't a brand or brand and branding marketing archetype, but it is indeed an archetype. Okay, and this is the shadow side of a mother, being a mother, the shadow side.
Mhm, mhm,
So whatever she was dealing with spiritually, whether it was some sort of spiritual psychosis, whether it was a mental illness that spiraled out of control because it was going untreated, or whether it was a result of a spiritual attack, I believe that it heightened the shadow side of being a mother. All right. So this is what we
Oh,
call the
yeah.
shadow mother archetype. Now, she fits this archetype because this archetype is a figure who should be nurturing and protective, but instead they manipulate, control, and then ultimately sabotage and destroy. So, in her
Right.
case, her neglect was disguised as like a divine purpose, right? So instead of helping Cairo, because according to autopsy, he passed away from dehydration that
Mhm,
stemmed from um, vomiting,
mhm,
and I think they said something about him having a stomach bug. So, from the symptoms that he had due to the stomach bug, that led to dehydration and an imbalance in his electrolytes, which
mhm,
ultimately led to his unfortunate demise. Right. So, the
mm,
neglect of not taking care of him or seeking medical treatment was disguised as a divine purpose, and she justified it as his suffering being a part of her spiritual belief and something that needed to happen, because
mm,
in her mind she didn't believe that this was indeed a 5-year-old child. This was a 100-year-old demon that possessed his body.
yeah.
Also, evasion, right? We talked about her evading the law instead of taking accountability. So running across multiple states rather than, facing justice.
Mhm,
Also weaponizing paranoia. So
mhm,
fabricating these government conspiracies to divert attention from the reality of her crime. So in a nutshell, because these are the things that have happened, these are the things that she exhibited. For me, she fell perfectly into the shadow side of motherhood when it comes to the
mhm.
archetype assigned to her. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, especially the paranoia part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and her, because when we think about in past cases where a parent, mainly mothers, who become so stressed out and so overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
um, raising kids and having to work and having to do all of these things, and 9 times out of 10, they're single moms and they're doing it on their own. And we've seen when they have unalived their children and themselves, right? 9
Mhm.
times out of 10, it is because of the heightened stress. And that stress turns into, all of a sudden you just snap. You snap and you get into this space where you believe that the best thing right now is to free your children and free yourself from all of this madness that's taking place, all of the stress and the overwhelm. And I can totally see her looking at his illness as something that needs to happen to him,
Yeah.
especially if she felt like he was a 100-year-old demon. She felt like she was already raising a 100-year-old demon. This baby got sick. And in her mind, that was her way of allowing him to be set free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I
No,
mean, it's terrible, but
it is. It's terrible.
unfortunately, this is what happens, not just from anybody that has mental instability and deals with magic, but this happens, you know, every day in our country. This happens
Mhm.
a lot with moms and dads who wear the burden of trying to provide everything for their children and be a good parent and also take care of themselves, and sometimes they may not be in the healthiest mindset. They may not feel supported. They may be dead dog tired, and let's just talk about what not getting enough sleep can do to you.
Mhm.
Okay, not getting enough sleep can put you into a state of mental unwellness. It really can. Not eating enough or eating too much crap, too much sugar, too much processed foods, things like that. These are things that your brain needs in order to function properly. And when you don't have basics, those basic things in place, and you're tired and you're overworked and you're stressed out, because I don't have any children, but kids can out. I watch people with children be like, "Oh my god, like this is too hard. Like what in the world? What was I thinking?"
Yeah, I have three. And I
So
remember, yeah, I was just gonna say, I have three, and I remember, they're much older now, so
mhm,
I have a lot of my freedom back. But I
right.
remember when they were much younger, there were plenty of nights I would lock myself in my room, and I would literally tell them, "Leave me alone," and I would lock
Yeah.
myself in the room and just cry
Mhm.
because it was hard, doing everything yourself. It was really hard. So, but I was strong. I was strong, and I was able to get through those emotional highs and lows. So I can just only imagine, someone that's dealing with all of these things, and they
Yeah.
don't have any support, they don't have a solid foundation, and they're mentally fragmented.
Yeah.
I, my heart really goes out to them because it can be a lot,
Oh, it's
a
a
lot.
whole lot.
Yeah,
It's a whole lot. And let's be clear, what she did is wrong, and she deserves to be where she is. She deserves to be under the jail.
yeah,
But at the same time, we do have to look at the lack of support that mothers and fathers have, especially, if they're doing it as a single parent. The lack of support that we give as far as, you know, mental wellness, and making sure they have support, making sure that maybe if they don't have family members who can help, is there some programs that they can join to offer that, like, hey, bring your kids to this place and just go take like 3 or 4 hours mental health time for yourself. Go get a
yeah,
massage, just take a walk, go eat some ice cream, go sit in the park, whatever. you know
yeah,
um do something that is just for you. And a lot of parents feel like they don't have the time. And usually they don't, because there are
hmm,
no support systems put in place. If you don't have family who's there to help, you don't have a friend group who's there to help, you're not friends with other parents who can help offset some of that stuff for you, and you're literally alone, or you feel like you're alone, then yes, that is, it's a terrible thing, and it can drive you mad. You know, people don't want to talk about the realness of that. People don't want to feel, they feel bad talking about kids stressing parents out. But
Yeah.
it's a reality. It's a fact. We cannot hide from that, you know.
Right.
And then also we talk about the responsibility of leaders, especially in these spiritual groups, taking on people and accepting people who are mentally unwell into
Mhm.
your apprenticeships, into your mentorships, into whatever initiation classes and things like that. You have to take responsibility. You need to learn the correct questions, the line of questions, and how to consult with a client before you take them on, with a potential
Yeah.
client before you take them on. You need to learn how to coach properly, not just
Say
taking a
that
weekend,
again.
a
How to coach
weekend course.
properly.
Yeah, learn how to
Mm-hmm.
coach properly
Mm-hmm.
so that you can avoid these types of situations. You know, it's very important that if you're going to do this line of work and you're going to charge thousands of dollars for people to come and learn from you, whether they learn something or not. But anyway, to learn from you,
Yeah.
then you need to be the very best at it. And you need to always be considering the health and the well being of your potential clients.
And you know
Always.
what? And you know what that tells me? When there is no proper vetting process
Hmm.
to take someone on as a client, as a mentee, especially in the spiritual space, for me, that just proves that it was all a money grab for you. Do you truly care about the people? Do you
Right.
truly care about helping them to transform, to elevate, to grow spiritually, to ascend into their divinity? Isn't that like
Hmm.
one of the taglines or some bullshit? But yeah.
Hmm.
So um when I say that, I mean, from that particular person.
Right.
No shade to the saying, but you know what I mean. But yeah, that just tells me it's all a money grab, because if you
Mhm.
know you're dealing with the public at that capacity, and you know that many people are dealing with their own issues emotionally, physically, mentally, more than anything, because as you said, magic is mental. The first universal
Yeah.
law, first universal principle, mentalism, all is mind.
The
Therefore,
universe is
you
mental.
should
Yep.
be very diligent about making sure that the mind is intact to be able to handle what you teach
Yep.
and what they will come in
100%.
contact with, right?
Hmm.
With the
Yep.
practices. So for me, that just tells me that it was all a money grab from day one, And
Hmm.
when we talk about not being mentally well, right? I was attacked one time by someone that was a part of that community. I don't know if she was an apprentice. I just know at the time, that's when we were really, really active in the Diamond Leaders group. She joined the group. And when she was in the group, I don't know how long she was in the group, but in the very beginning, she was very engaging. She participated, she would post, she would share, she would go live. And I was like, okay, I like her energy, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, one day, I get a message out of the blue from her, and I don't have access to the message anymore because I had to block her. But I got a message from her and she was just going off on me. But when she was speaking, it was just a lot of gibberish. She wasn't making any sense. So I could tell that she was spiraling out mentally.
Hmm.
So I remember sending her a voice clip and I was like, I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm definitely not offended by what you're saying because I can tell that you're not well. And I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to block you because I don't appreciate you harassing me. But I really urge you and encourage you to please seek help. So I blocked her, but I blocked her in the inbox. The next thing I know, when I get on Facebook, she made a public post and tagged me in it. And I just remember it saying something like, I don't know why you blocked me, but blah, 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 blah. So then I had to block her on Facebook. And I was really floored by that. I'm like, wow, where did that come from? I never saw that coming. But again, this person was in direct proximity to that community. And then the leader, the HBIC of that community, actually takes pride and often boast about throwing at people and them
Mhm.
having these mental declines.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, we don't know if someone in that group was having issues with Dejaune and might have thrown something at her. I would not be surprised if that happened. You
Mm-hmm.
know, most of the people I know who dealt with any types of um, spiritual attacks and psychic attacks and things like that, one of the very first things they would always mention is that, they felt like something was taking over their mind. You know what I mean? Like, they would have bad dreams, or they would, get a sense or feel that something was around them. There's some entity or something like that was in their home, or something was trying to attack them that
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't see. So this is a running theme in that particular group, in that particular community. It's a running thing that the mental is attacked, and then your health and your mental health is also under attack. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. It's just really unfortunate that this happened. And this is not the only case that has taken place like this, in some sort of like spiritual community or cult like communities, right? This
Right.
happens a lot in those types of spaces. I
Yeah.
have a community, you have a community, nothing like that has ever happened. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it does lead us to the question of what's going on over there, that something like this could take place by someone who worked with you, who was an apprentice, who was in your apprenticeship, who you did work for, because I got something
Mm-hmm.
here somebody just shared with me. uh, I'll share it with you
Yeah.
offline. But they worked, she was working with her mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So why, if you were working closely with this person, why couldn't you detect that something was off? I did. I
Right.
could see that something was off way earlier, before she started making those crazy posts on Facebook. I was like, yeah, no, I can't work with her. So if I could pull that out, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be this big time, professional and magic person, and you could do this and you could do that, and you've healed so many people, why aren't you able to detect that this woman was not working with a full deck of cards? You should have been able to detect that she should have never been an apprentice.
But
Never.
he was really quick. He was really quick though to run to LA Times, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
She was really quick to
Mhm.
run to LA Times and curate a very subtle smear campaign on this lady in attempts to separate herself so that maybe a potential investigation isn't launched into her practices. And then
Right.
next thing you know, we have another series very similar to Twin Flames, which I think is something that we may need. How about that, Imran?
Okay. That part.
Right.
That part. Do you want to I know we don't have time right now cuz we're almost out of time,
Mm-hmm.
but oh no, you already posted it. You posted it in the community page already, didn't you?
Which about what?
About
Which
that
one?
that interview in LA Times that she did about
I
Dejaune.
did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We might we might need to
I
recirculate
did.
that one. We may need to
Yeah.
recirculate that one, because yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there you cannot, I'm sorry, you just Yeah, it's her responsibility. It's Dejaune's responsibility to take care of her mental wellness. Absolutely responsible. It's her responsibility for what she did to her child, what happened. That is 100% her responsibility. But
Yeah.
if you're going to be interviewed by LA Times and make comments about what happened, how about not smearing the person who did this horrible thing? And how about taking some responsibility?
Right. Take
You know what?
responsibility because,
I've learned
one
some.
of, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just going to say, just take responsibility and you know what? Yes, the practices that we do are very deep, deep spiritual practices. I was not aware of her potential mental instability when we first started working together. Had I been aware of that, I would have never taken her on as a client. I would have never allowed her to do these practices, and I certainly would have never taught her. That's taking
Hmm.
responsibility. That's being mature. And that is you saying, hey, I didn't know then what I know now. Now going forward, I will make sure
Yeah.
that I make sure that I will better vet people before I take them on as apprentices. Like that's what you do. That's
Right.
how you
As a
can navigate and still come out on the other side looking like a
very
little angel.
demure, very mature, very right,
Okay.
very accountable. Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
but but it takes a certain type of person to always point the finger and say it's their fault, their fault, their fault, their fault. It's a certain
Hmm.
type of person that does that.
Yes. I totally agree. All right. So we are getting ready to close out. So we're now segueing into our closing thoughts. So, Shara, I would love for you to just share with us what are some things that we can learn from this case and some of the many things we discussed on tonight.
Well, first and foremost, if you are a single parent, whether you are a single mother or father, and you're feeling stressed out and overwhelmed, and you happen to be listening to this episode, and I ask people to please share this. If you're watching, do share because it is very important that people need to hear this. They need to understand. Everybody talks about this story, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
they talk about it from the standpoint of how crazy this was and this is terrible and oh my God, but I feel like we've gone so much deeper as far as the mental illness portion of it, dealing with deep magic and dealing with entities and things like that. And then also just being stressed and overwhelmed and not having a strong foundation or strong support system. So you are a single parent, you feel overwhelmed. I encourage you to talk to someone and then start doing some research to find support groups and systems, whether it's online or whether it's in your immediate community, because the one thing that will always help you is to be around other people who
Yeah.
are dealing with the same thing, but you guys are also in a space where there's someone who can guide you, someone who could provide tools to assist you. Very, very important that you do that. The other thing that I will say is if you are dealing with some sort of mental instability, that you make sure that you take care of yourself. Go get the proper help. Go talk to the proper professionals and experts who can assist you. Again, even if you went in for a mental eval and they did find something a little off balance, they cannot hold you more than 72 hours and then you are free to go. All right. But
Mhm.
at least you will have the information that you need to then say, okay, I need a doctor. I need someone to help me. And then you want to work with a spiritual practitioner, vet them very well first. And you can do
Mhm.
that too, but don't start dealing with entities and magic and rituals and spell work unless it's healing, unless it's going to be some sort of healing ritual for you.
Yeah.
So those would be the two main things that I would like to leave on the table tonight. And because you need to understand reality from fantasy, because it could mean life or death. That's it for
Yep,
me.
I agree. First, I would like to say currently we have 6 people that are tuning in. Thank you so much for being with us on tonight. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. It takes less than a second, and we would greatly, greatly appreciate it because Shara and I are working really, really hard to grow this platform so that our voice and our message reach more people. So I would greatly
Mhm.
appreciate if you could just tap on the like button. And if you aren't already, please subscribe. We would appreciate that too.
Yes.
For me, it's definitely, you touched on it with your second point. If you feel like you're dealing with any sort of mental imbalance or any imbalance in your mental health, because I don't really like to harp on the word illness, right? But if you're dealing with any imbalance in your mental health, do not feel embarrassed or do not be afraid to reach out to someone. It's one thing when from afar, we see someone dealing with a mental health imbalance. But when it hits close to home, it's a completely different experience. And
Yep.
that's when you realize, like, wow, this is not a trend. This is a real thing. For me, the person in my life that dealt with it, when they were admitted to the hospital, they were actually kept for 2 weeks
Mhm.
because they needed to be in there that long because that's just how severe the the imbalance was.
Mhm.
So please, if you know this is not me, I don't normally have these type of thoughts. I don't normally hear these type of voices that's telling me to harm myself or to harm someone else. Please always be aware. And once you realize it, reach out and get the necessary help. There's nothing wrong with getting the help, both traditionally and spiritually. I personally advise you do both because it's holistic, right?
Yes.
And you just have a better chance at recovering and just being on that journey to your healing. So please get help. And yes, while you may be going through it or experiencing it, or if you just know that you're not mentally rooted and solid and fortified, if you are going to dabble in any sort of spiritual practice or ritual, start off with working with your ancestors and start off with
Mhm.
healing work. Healing, healing, healing. Healing is the foundation of all, right? Because once you have healed the cracks in your foundation, then you're just that much more powerful, solid, and rooted. And then you can move forward with leveling up your practices. So,
Yep.
those would be my personal closing thoughts.
I agree.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, please remember to stay vigilant and discerning.
Mhm.
Have a good night,
All
everyone.
right, guys. Good night, y'all. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye bye.